education, and real-world knowledge about the voiceover industry. It's the Voiceover Gurus Podcast.
Yeah, make sure.
Yes. Everything's good. You got your water, you got your coffee. What you got? What you got?
I got water today. I got Deer Park. That's good water.
Oh, okay, good. I have mystery coffee in a disposable cup. So, welcome back to the Voiceover Gurus podcast. I'm Linda Bruno, and it's been a little while. I wanted to get you on the show for a while now because you have so many interesting perspectives on coaching processes and getting groups together. So I want to say hello to Jon Ciano.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you and I go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you had your first event at my studio in Plainview.
Correct.
So how did the idea come about to create LIVO?
So it was kind of interesting how it happened. So when I started in the industry, I was looking for voice actors that were on Long Island, based on Long Island, so we can get together and just talk industry, because sometimes your significant others have no idea what you're talking about, right? So I was able to find a couple of people, and how LIVO came along was I had entered a contest over the holidays one year where Gabby Nistico was giving away a signed copy of one of the books she wrote.
Mm-hmm.
So I had won it. And she goes, I'm from Long Island. I said, really? So I had no idea. And she's from Brentwood originally, which is not too far from where I live now. And so I said, well, why don't you, come home and we'll do something together, and that's kind of how the idea of LIVO started. Now, when this all happened was 2019, where we said, well, let's get that first event put together, and Gabby had known you from past endeavors.
Yeah.
And so introduced us. And I mean, there was good, having that first event in June of 2019 in that studio was amazing. I actually loved that place. The experience was great.
Fun.
It was a lot of fun. We had Everett Oliver came out, and Uncle Roy was there. So it was just a great little party, and we all went out to dinner after, and it was just amazing. But that's what started what was originally Long Island Voiceover Takeover, which you, myself, and Gabby came up with that name together. That's what started that, and it was just originally, it was a way for people on Long Island who are in this industry to get together and coach with seasoned veterans,
It was fun in our old space. We were just talking about my old space and what a dump I thought it was. And the only reason why it was very chopped up because we just kept acquiring another office. So it wasn't very fluid. But for the event, it was kind of cool because we had like Uncle Roy and Everett Oliver in the studio in one little section. We had Gabby in the dining room doing her thing. We had me in the main area coaching my thing. And then people would travel from room to room, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, it worked out great, and we had a nice full group. I think we had roughly 30 people, which was great because there were groups of 10 that went around, and just made a day of it. We had lunch, and like I said, it was really just a lot of fun, and it was a great first experience for a brand new group. You
had T-shirts and everything.
Yeah, I had T-shirts made up. Luckily enough, a member of my family does that for a living, so he was. He was more than helpful.
Brought the bagels. Everybody had a bagel in a Ziploc bag that they were given.
I forgot about that. Everybody had their own individual bagels.
He was at the dining room table sorting and organizing and filling and putting names on stuff. It was so funny.
It really was. That was amazing.
So then COVID hit.
Yeah. Then COVID hit.
Yeah.
We were planning the second in person for June of 2020. And we were moving pretty well with that as far as getting people to sign up and whatnot, but it was still early. And then COVID was March 2020, we shut down. Right. So it was hard. There were a lot of things. There were a lot of in-person events that you kind of watched slowly shut down.
Right.
And ours, which was a much smaller event compared to some of these other larger ones. So I had to make the decision. Do we shut down or do we try to do it? And it just by the end of March, it just seemed inevitable that we were going to have trouble going into the summer.
Right.
So that's when I made the decision that we won't do the in-person in June, but we'll start doing online classes. And that's what LIVO has turned into today. It's primarily online classes. We do we do one a month in various genres, and, some business classes as well. And, occasionally we'll do something in person, but it hasn't been as frequent even since the pandemic. We're going to still try to do one once a year. However, I did acquire, if for lack of a better word, voice actors in New York City in 2023 when Karen was graciously reached out to me, and I still don't understand why, but she reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to take that group over. And
you have to explain who Karen is.
So Karen Gilfrey is a fellow voice actor. She lives out on the West Coast right now. She originated voice actors in New York City. It has to be almost 10 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a Facebook group, but her vision was much more than that. It was being able to bring the sense of community to the voice actors of New York City. And that's what she did. She would do what she called teach-a-thons, where she would have a handful of some coaches, some people from the industry to talk about what they do, and kind of give a quick like elevator pitch about their side of the industry. And, these were usually donation-based classes. And those funds would go into a pool where if you had some hardships and you needed some funds, she would give them to you, no questions asked.
Oh, that's nice.
They would go towards some other in-person events, like a party or something that they wanted to put together. So again, it was just about building that community within New York City.
Yeah.
So when she reached out to me and I asked why, it was really because of what I was able to build with LIVO in 4 short years. So that was kind of the concept, is that I would come in as an interim president and just kind of feel it out. And this year I guess formally took it over.
Okay.
And I formed a new board to kind of help run things, people that are closer to the city, because, for me, it's on a good day, it's an hour. And that's a good day, and that's just to get into the tunnel.
Right.
So, so I think that, by me being able to get people that are closer to the city and help organize in-person events, do these teach-a-thons again, because when the pandemic hit, obviously New York City shut down tremendously,
right.
And so we were able to kind of discuss, and this was just recently, kind of discuss what we're going to do, bring these teach-a-thons back, have parties, meet up, get a group together and just meet up in Central Park and have a picnic, those type of things, to bring the sense of community back to the industry.
So you've taken over that whole process now?
Yeah. So like I said, I brought the board in. And what I want them to do is they're going to kind of lead that charge, and LIVO will be kind of the big sister to it, if you will, because, there's obviously business tax burdens and whatnot that we have to absorb. So LIVO will kind of be the big sister in that.
Okay. That's interesting. It's a cool way to expand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously to your point, it expands our audience, LIVO's audience, to the voice actors in New York City group, which are not only voice actors in New York City, that's become a global community as well.
That's really cool. I know I used to always say when I lived in the city, it's the largest city with the most people, and it's the loneliest city because it was so hard to connect with others. So it's good to have these outlets, especially for voice actors, because everybody's like head down, doing their thing, going to this and that, and to have folks stop and gather and come together with one community purpose is wonderful, especially for New York City.
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge to have, this industry is big on the community, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're all here to try to help each other out in any way we can. And it's just, we want to keep that going with the voice actors in New York City group.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
So now what do you see as the future for LIVO then?
So the future for LIVO still remains the same. Essentially my view for it is that it will continue to be primarily an online presence. doing the online classes. Maybe occasionally we'll do something in person, depending on my conversation with the coach who wants to do the class. But voice actors in New York City will lead that in-person charge,
Gotcha.
if you will, where they can go, and the current board can go and they can find venues and set up the whole concept and get that rolling, because there's obviously a much larger presence in the city than there is on Long Island.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it's good to have those in person. We've had in-person events like the first one we did here on Long Island, and they were successful. But there's always the people in New York City who won't travel past Queens, if you will. So
yes, hey, I know people that won't go above 14th Street.
Right, it's true.
They're
right?
like, why?
Long Island's a different country sometimes.
Yes, yeah, they're like, you're from Long Island. That's really weird. So tell me about the monthly coaching workouts that you have. Tell me about the coaches. What do you guys specialize in a particular thing? I mean, I guess each coach specializes in their own thing.
Right, exactly. So each coach, each month is a specific genre. We don't tailor to one, because we like to tailor to the diversity of the industry, So we'll each coach has their specialty. We don't ask them obviously to go outside their specialty. When I have these one-on-one conversations with the coaches, we'll discuss what they're most comfortable with, and then take it from there. So most of the time, I try to split the year between business classes and actual workouts.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, everybody's getting a taste of everything. These are 2-hour classes. You're not gonna become a marketing professional in a 2-hour class if we have a marketing class, but you'll learn something enough that you can take away and start applying. And it's all about having as many eggs in your basket as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to start the year off with a couple of business classes, so that way you can start the year that way. And I also try to end the year with business classes, so you can start your new year.
Oh, that's great.
With that fresh in your mind. Yeah.
So how many people do you have? Do you have a maximum amount of people for the classes?
So with the workout style classes, there's 10 to 12 max participants.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have audit spots on most of the classes where you can, kind of sit in and listen and still participate in the Q&A. The lecture style classes or the business classes are unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
So we as many people want to sign up, they can. And there's always a Q&A at the end, and they're more than happy to participate in that as well. And we also started, I believe it was 2022, and Holly, when she listens to this, is probably going to correct me, but we started a monthly peer-led workout group too.
Okay.
Which has been great. And Holly Sickinger, who is part of the LIVO group, she kind of leads that whole thing, and it's great. It's been a lot of fun for them.
That's awesome. So what are the price points? Like, what are your workouts and less courses range, so people know?
Right. So they do vary. We don't have like one set, if you will. It really, when I talk to the coaches about this, I talk about our typical lecture style class is $40 per person.
Okay.
And the participant style is $70 per person. However, when I have these conversations with the coaches, one of my talking points is, what do you expect to get out of this? Because sometimes that will adjust that price point. But for the most part, they're 40 and 70.
Okay. Yeah. So that's very affordable.
Yeah.
Very affordable.
It's great. Yeah.
So that's great. You have a variety. Let's first go ahead and give out the website. The easiest way to see your upcoming, lectures, etc., is where?
Sure. It's livotakeover.com, LIVOTAKEOVER.com.
livotakeover.com. You also have a pretty active Facebook group too.
Yeah, we have a great group, and that's growing. Believe it or not, the majority of our attendance comes from Instagram.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Facebook is good because you can have those conversations where you can't really have them on Instagram, but Instagram is so big with, varying generations.
Right.
So it ends up pulling in a lot of attendance from that. It's
I wind up getting people say, "Oh, I found you on Instagram," and I'm like, "Really?"
Right.
you know, and because my assistant does the social media and will post things, but you know, it is such a growing platform. I mean, it's been growing for years, but yeah, it's kind of amazing that you have to find which ones because they always change. It's constantly changing. Like now, you know, TikTok and and you have to keep up with, you know, you have to keep up with the trends. It's so annoying.
It's true. It's absolutely true. You know, and it is because I have a teenage daughter. So it's like I see they're using Snapchat more, and I'm not a big fan of Snapchat. And then,
Snapchat is the temporary one.
I have right. So that's first of all, it doesn't really work for our industry in that
Right.
sense. Second of all, if it's temporary, that means you're doing something that's not right.
There's a reason it's temporary.
Exactly.
That's funny. So let's talk about you. How did you get started in voiceover?
So I started in voiceover. I lived in Florida for 10 years, moved back to New York in 2014, and I'm sitting in my cubicle and I'm saying, I can't do this the rest of my life.
What were you doing?
I was a relationship manager for a small finance company that specialized in vehicle financing. So I was actually in the tow truck department.
Wow.
Right. And I'm saying I can't sit here and cold call tow truck companies and, you know, this, like, I'm going crazy, you know? And so I said, well, there's got to be something else I can do. I have a background in theater. So I said, well, maybe I'll go do some musicals locally, you know, and it wasn't about the money. It was about the outlet, right?
Sure.
The outlet. So I said, well, I got a young child at home. I can't go disappearing at night, work all day and disappear at night. So I said, that's not really going to work. Right. So years ago, I was looking into voiceover again, because what a lot of people say, oh, you have such a nice voice, you know, that.
Yes.
And so when people say that to you, no matter who you are, you start thinking about it, you know, whether it's the reason to go into voiceover or not is debatable. But that's what I was thinking. And I said, you know what, let me look into this. So I started doing networking on LinkedIn with voice actors, not with people hiring voice actors, with voice actors. So I can talk to them. I met some great people. Larry Hudson was the first person to reach out to me and talk to me,
Great.
you know, and it was just kind of getting an understanding of what are these people doing as voice actors? What are they doing in the industry? So after some time, I was listening to Rob Paulson's podcast, Talking Tunes, and I got obsessed with it. And I told my wife, so she sent away for his autograph and told him the story of how I wanted to pursue voice acting. And he called me on the phone. He said, I want to talk to this guy. So he called me on the phone. It was amazing. It still gives me the chills.
Take the time.
Yeah. Like, he took the time, and that's exactly it. We talked for about an hour or two, and we talked about sports. He's a big, you know, he's from Michigan originally. So he's a big Red Wings fan. So we talked sports and whatnot. And then we talked about the industry. And I said, geez, if this guy can take the time to talk to me about his adventure into voice acting, why do I not just give it a shot, you know? So I went and bought I bought some relatively inexpensive equipment. An MXL 990 was my first mic, and I used it for a couple of years after that.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and I set something up in a closet surrounded by clothes like most people do. And I auditioned for an audiobook, the first audiobook I found on ACX. And my first audition, I got it.
Wow.
You know, and it was like, wow, this is great.
Feeling good. Yeah.
Yeah, you feel great. You do that audiobook, and as an asterisk, I'm not a big audiobook narrator. So
right.
They're very time consuming.
Yes, they are.
But you know, then that was a great feeling. And you learn to realize fairly quickly that is not how it goes, right? You're not always going to get that first audition. You're not always going to get the second audition. You know, it's going to take time, and you'll learn about that process. But that's how I got started. And I'm absolutely in love with this industry, the people in the industry and the industry itself. I've never been more satisfied with anything, and I've had a lot of jobs.
So now, what do you think as far as being a voice actor goes? Do you have what's the majority of the work that you feel you book?
Yeah, the majority of my work is corporate narration. So you know, and believe it or not, the majority of my work is corporate narration overseas. So yeah, in Europe. specifically in Spain. I don't know. I don't know what
Really?
it is about my voice, but
That's
yes.
interesting. Now, are you
Yeah.
with agencies out in Europe?
I'm actually just on production company rosters. I don't have an agent itself in Europe. I have several agents in the States.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of my work is corporate narration, and the majority of that comes from Europe. I'm also one of the regular clients, if you will, is a YouTube channel called Lulu Kids,
Mm-hmm.
which is very much like Coco Melon. It's just the Romanian version of it. So
Fantastic.
there's a few of us who are part of the LIVO group who do some of the voices. I've probably done a dozen or so voices for them, everywhere from a dog to the father.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing the corporate narration for the overseas clients, are you doing mostly on your own sessions, or are you doing live and connecting with
They're live.
Okay.
Yeah, they're live and connected. Some of them are kind of dubbing. So so they all do directed sessions. And I don't think, yeah, as a matter of fact, I've never done one that was not directed.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's always hard for us here in the States to work with people
Right.
overseas
So
because
are you doing morning and their afternoon?
yeah,
Pretty
that's
much.
exactly it. Yeah, we'll
Gotcha.
try. Most of the companies I work with, they are very accommodating, as they always will be to
Mm.
American voices because of the time difference, so they try to make it as late as possible. I think usually the earliest they'll have me come on is 7, 8 o'clock, but they always try to make it like 9, 10 o'clock, which is perfect.
That's better.
The
Yeah.
kids are out
Well,
of the house by then, and
mm-hmm.
everything's nice and quiet around here.
I worked for an Italian client for like 6 months, and I was narrating biographies, and it was all directed sessions, and it was via ISDN. So, but they had, it was like, I think it was an 8 a.m. start to noon for like 6 months. It was a lot of work. But it was, you kind of get in a rhythm and you're like, okay, you're going to have this. And it was kind of cool. And then I got paid for a long time, and then I got shafted. And then the payment stopped coming, but they still wanted to. It was me and another male talent. He's in Canada. And I'd be like, I haven't gotten a check in a while. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, the check is coming. Yes, they're going to be paying you soon. And I'd be waiting and waiting and waiting. And then the tab would build up, build up, build up. And I got to $17,000 that they owed me.
Wow.
Yeah, and the male talent as well. And then the company went out of business.
No kidding.
Yeah, and that was my greatest loss.
Yeah.
And you trust, and you have a working relationship, and you're getting paid. So of course you're like, well,
Yeah.
they're already paying me. And I know it's not the producer's fault, it's whoever's running the company.
Yes.
But they filed for bankruptcy, and they go through the thing with the legal, saying, okay, we're going to pay you, but it's going to be like, 10 cents on the dollar. And then I never got a cent of anything,
Oh
so
no.
I know I had to cry for a while, and then, but that definitely doesn't happen with all, that's not it's just
Right.
my sad story of one client in Europe where it
Yeah.
went bad. But again, I'm not quite sure how I could have handled it any differently, because you develop that relationship with them, especially when you're talking to them almost every day and they're
Oh yeah.
coaching you and all that. It's so hard to be like, I'm no longer, but I guess a little too trusting on my part.
Right, and that happens, and right, and that's a business lesson,
Yes.
and unfortunately, there are many, instead of heeding the warning that you just actually gave everyone, they may have to, do it themselves and just
Mm.
learn the hard way, unfortunately,
Mhm.
and look, I mean, I don't want to, give any perception that everything in any business is sunshine and rainbows, because it's certainly not.
Right.
Starting your own voiceover business, or starting your own voiceover adjacent business like LIVO Takeover is, or if you're opening a deli,
Mhm.
there's ebbs and flows, and there's going to be difficulties, and that's the reality of it. You're not going in from a voiceover perspective. You're not going to book every audition.
Right. No.
And I know there are a lot of green people who come into the industry, and as soon as they don't book their first three, they're
Yeah.
giving up. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything. It's a large industry. There's
Mhm.
plenty of room for all of us.
There's
It
tons of
doesn't,
work out there.
oh yeah, there's so much. And it doesn't mean that you have a bad voice. It just means you
Yeah.
weren't the voice for that specific part,
Right. Hmm.
and that's okay. And that's okay. And you can't beat yourself up. I've done some mentoring myself, and I have mentors, just like we all should have mentors, and I believe in giving that back. So I've mentored some people in from my past lives, who were interested in getting in the industry. Mike Moriarty, who joined LIVO 2 years ago, I went to high school with him. I graduated with his older brother. So it's like as you mentor some of these people, you can see the stress. I hate to say, you can see the stress on their face, even though you're not seeing them, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can sense the stress, and there's always going to be something, even if you're every day, you're sitting in that booth for 6 hours a day and getting tons of work, there's still stresses, you can be like, I'm flying high, but there's still something that's going to affect you. And you just have to ride through it and know that we're all in this industry going through the same things,
Yeah.
And
I know, I don't care what anybody says. They're
no,
like,
no, exactly. Well, that's it. Never compare your journey to somebody else's journey.
But I can't stand when I hear people and they get on podcasts or whatever, and they're like, I book jobs every day and I'm making XYZ. And I'm just like, why are you saying this? I mean, I'm best friends with one of the most successful people in voiceover, and that's not how his life is. So I don't understand how this other person or people are proclaiming this. Or like I was talking about on another podcast the other day, the freaking TikTok videos where people say it's some random person who goes, I booked a $5,000 job in one day, and they leave out all the other stuff. There was another girl that I saw that my friend sent me, and she starts doing like her version of all the classic, like an on hold message, da 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 da. And she's looking, and she's very pretty, and she's doing the whole thing. And people are commenting, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're the voice of that. You're the voice of this." And it's like, she's not. She's just doing an example, but this impression of it's easy,
right?
Just go ahead. It's easy. You can do this.
Yeah, and we all know it's certainly not.
No.
Right? I mean, that's the reality. It's not easy,
right?
It's an absolute uphill climb.
But you say you love the industry. What do you love about voiceover? What do you love about this whole process?
So while like we just spoke about, while there are stresses involved, I'd rather have this stress than working for someone else in corporate America.
Amen.
On a daily basis for 40, 50, 60 hours. Absolutely would take these stresses over any of that any day.
Yeah.
So just to preface that with that sentence. But what I really love about it is the fact that not only I'm working for myself. Yes, we have our clients, right? But I am working for myself. This is my business. I am running it my way. And I know that if I needed to turn and ask you a question, or ask Everett a question, or Brad Highland, if I needed to turn and ask anybody anything, you will all be there as soon as you can to answer that.
I won't answer the phone, but you could try.
I could try, but I mean, seriously though, we all really do try to have each other's back, no matter what, And yes, there are people out there who will talk about how they booked that $5,000 job. And I actually just swipe right past that. That is noise that nobody coming into the industry needs to hear.
Right.
Because of like you said, it's not the reality.
It's just not reality.
So but there are people in this industry who are just absolutely amazing. They give 100% to giving back to the community. You don't find that in corporate America. And at the crux of it, the why I love this industry is because it's not corporate America.
Yeah.
And you have support. You have people pushing you up. You don't have people pushing you down. And there's always noise. There's a noise. No matter what industry you're in, there's always going to be noise, and there's going to be people boasting and posting about how easy it was for them. And they even know at the end of it wasn't really that easy. But in hindsight, it could have been a lot worse.
I think it's good to, if you are starting out and you're having frustrations, like you said, think about what you were doing for a living.
Yeah.
Think about how miserable you were, unhappy. Do you want to go back to that? And I think all of us as voice actors that have been doing this for a while, this is it for us. It's like, we are not ever going back. I don't know. I said to Matt, yesterday. I go, I'm sorry, but if there's no more VO work for me, I don't know. I'll go to Target. I'll work at Chick-fil-A for a little while. I would, but I am not going back to an office. I am not, I won't, I refuse. It's just, it was killing a part of my soul, every day. Radio was doing that to me too.
Yeah. I've heard
So,
that.
it's just you have to say, okay, I got to take the lumps. Maybe I didn't book a job this week. Maybe I don't have money. Maybe my savings is dwindling. Well, do you really want to go back to the other thing? And 99% of the time, it's going to be a no.
Right. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having another job while you're pursuing or doing voiceover. Matter of fact, during the strike, Jack Black even said, this is why I have my band, because he needs some way for it to make money while he's not filming.
Yeah.
So
great point.
When he said that, I said, you know what? That's true. There are many actors who we look up to and see in big grossing movies who have second jobs. We may not hear about it.
Right.
Realize it. Johnny Depp has had a band for years. The Bacon brothers have been bands for years. They've always had a supplemental income.
That's true.
Right? So there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody like Jack Black is out there admitting that you can do it, there's nothing wrong with somebody like me saying I can have a day job and still do voiceover at night, or I can have a night job and do voiceover during the day, something.
Always possible. I always say that too. If you don't have a client base and don't feel comfortable or support, you have to keep that extra job.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that is situational and geographical. So, people like us who live on Long Island know how expensive it is to live in, around here.
Yeah.
There are other parts of the country where it's much less expensive. And while money's not always relative, as much as they always, you've lived in Florida, so you know how cheap it was to live in Florida compared to New York, right? Florida's not that cheap anymore.
No.
But their salaries haven't necessarily gone up either,
That's the problem. I used to always say I'm getting paid in sunshine down here.
Right.
That's why someone asked me the other day, they go, why did you ever leave Florida? I was like, I was getting paid in sunshine. I needed to, find. And if the salaries had matched, I think the people that, are in Florida would be a little happier. But their rents have gone up. Everything's gone up for them. It's tremendous. It used to be the place to go. Absolutely.
And it's insane how different it is now. And what I mean by the situational is I always tell people there are kind of like 3 tiers to an individual in voiceover. There's somebody who's young, maybe still lives with their parents, doesn't have any bills, so they can kind of come and go as they choose. They can be in the booth as long as they want, and whatnot. Then there's people who are kind of in my situation. You're married. The kids are home, they need attention, that does take a lot of time. So you kind of have to pick and choose when you're getting in that booth, when the kids are at school, or when they're taking a nap if they're not in school. And then there's the people who don't have children, or even the empty nesters, where who also fits into that, the empty nesters who are retired, they're collecting a pension. Money's not really an issue. They can take that retirement income and put it towards their new business.
Yeah, investing.
It's interesting, and this is why I say you can't compare your journey to somebody else's, because everybody's life doesn't mirror someone else's.
Right.
So you take your journey and make it your journey, not someone else's.
We try to keep it pretty flexible with our coaching here, because that's why I don't lock people into like large packages, because I'm like, look, I'm very aware that finances can change from time to time, or you have a family situation or an emergency, which is why you can cancel on me last minute. There's no penalty. It's fine. Flexibility. You can see me once a month. You can see me once every 6 months, whatever's going to work for you, because it's just true. To be able to just commit fully and just be like, I mean, how many of us could actually do that?
It's true.
It's just, everybody has a life and they have things going on. And, but that's a great point. So what do you think the percentage is of your focus on LIVO and what you're doing with the New York City group to voiceover?
Yeah, I think, and in all honesty, 2023 was hard for everybody. 2023 was harder for me because I think I put more into LIVO and trying to figure out what I'm doing with voice actors in New York City than the focus on my own business.
Gotcha.
So it kind of spilt over into 2024, even though we just started, but I can still already feel it in January, the spillover. So for me, 2024 is a rebalance to make sure that, look, LIVO, as much as I promote it, and I have my team with Bonnie, Mike, and Holly promoting it as well. It's almost self-sustained at this point. You know, we continue to fill classes. I have great coaches who some coaches will reach out to me and say, when can I do a class? I might have to chase a few down to see if I can get them to do a class. But, it's almost self-sustained. Voice actors in New York City is kind of in a rebuilding phase. But that's why I brought 4 great people on to go ahead. I'm sorry, 5 great people on to go ahead and kind of take the reins so I can refocus on my group. And I hired a lead generator this year.
Oh, okay.
And I actually hired her last year so she can start January 1.
Nice.
And it took some of my time, and I'm a big advocate, and I know a lot of people aren't, but I'm a big advocate of voiceover adjacent people to help take the burden off your shoulders.
Right.
I don't always have time to fish for lead generators. Yes, I can send the emails and the follow-up emails and do the auditions, but lead generation was something I thought I was suffering in. So I signed up with VA for VO and was able to find an assistant who would do the lead generation part for me.
That's great.
And it's been it's only been a month. And it's been huge already.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. So, that's great that you're finding that balance. I know 2023 was a weird year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was pretty slow, up until like November. Then I started to get busy, but it was a little tough,
Yeah,
now doing my
absolutely.
taxes and looking at everything, I'm like, wow, okay, there was that. But so it is with this business, or having your own business in general.
Yeah, just in general. Exactly. Exactly. I haven't started my taxes yet. Don't tell the IRS. I'll be on time, I promise.
I know. I know. I get like really nervous about, I don't know why, because I keep my books, but still,
Right.
Mother's a bookkeeper, for crying out loud. But I'm still like, I gotta make sure I get everything in on time.
Exactly.
Well, this was wonderful. Just give me the address again, just so everybody knows where to go to get some coaching.
Sure. It's LIVO Takeover, LIVO TAKEOVER.com.
Awesome. And now, guys, you all know that if I'm promoting somebody else's coaching thing, I must really believe in it. Now, I think what you guys offer is wonderful. And, so many students these days, too, are just taking class after class after class. And, because you're getting different perspectives. Yeah. You're getting another viewpoint on it. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you shouldn't be sticking with the same. You got to go where it's comfortable. I'm a little, nervous to ever call Everett and ask him to come coach, because I'm worried I can't afford him. So I've kind of not pursued that. But I don't know. Maybe I'll get the guts this year to see if he wants to. But he has to fly out here, and he has to. Yes. That's the other caveat.
Yeah, I speak to him on a weekly basis, so I kind of know what his schedule is at all times. But yeah, he'll be out here. I told him I'm expecting him out here sometime in 2024. So we'll see if we can get him out here for sure. But to your point, the diversity of coach, I've coached with dozens of people, and I absolutely recommend that. You have to find coaches that you're going to click with.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for joining me. It has been long overdue, and I'm so happy to see you, even if it is just remotely. I know you're down the street from me, right. But you have to come down and see the new studio at some point.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the support. I really appreciate it.
Yay, no problem. That wraps it up for another episode of the Voiceover Gurus podcast. Head over to voiceover.guru. We have our circle community as well that is free to join. People are really loving that because they get to do, free contests and workouts on the actual platform itself. And then you have information as to what's happening with us. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Fabulous.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I was playing with my audio while we were chatting. I really clicked it a couple of times.
Thanks for listening to the Voiceover Gurus podcast. Real talk about the voiceover industry. Learn more about us and get coaching. at voiceover.guru.